You can never decongest road traffic for private vehicles. Decongestion works only for your nose when you have a cold. No city anywhere in the world can keep roads free of traffic without heavy penalties like in Singapore. There's a concept called choice architecture, which is a practice of designing the context in which people make decisions to influence their choices. In case of your movement every day on the roads, it looks like this: a large network of walking and cycling and mass transport infrastructure, and not just asphalt end to end. In today's episode, I'll uncover the layers in this thinking from the road to the underlying governance structure that makes this event repeat every year, every season. If the mental model doesn't shift in us, we will be treating the symptoms as a pattern, like paracetamol for fever, not a cure for the underlying disease, which might require the underlying structures to change. You are listening to the Uru Labs podcast, and I am your host, Sathya Sankaran. I spoke about Jevons Paradox in episode 3 of this season. You can watch it on this channel to understand more of the mobility choices. It goes like this: when technological advancement make a resource more efficient to use, it results in the overall demand increasing, causing the total resource consumption to rise instead of decreasing. For example, as you make more road space available, it is filled by people who wouldn't have considered driving a motor vehicle to bring one and fill up the freed up space. So, making more road space available doesn't necessarily mean the usage decreases or that you will have that same space available to you in the same way. It induces more people to fill it. It doesn't mean we stop building roads anywhere. It just means we need to be judicious about how we build it in dense cities and acknowledge that the cost of provisioning additional bandwidth comes at the cost of some other utilization of that space. This is Jevons Paradox. Remember this concept for everything from roads to energy to water to your daily consumption of products. How many things have you consumed more of just because they are cheap? Think about it. Economically speaking, however, we should use the existing road bandwidth efficiently to move more people with alternate means like mass transport, walking, and cycling. Making inefficient modes, however comfortable they might be, deprives other users of the road space who are willing to take more efficient modes. Choice of efficient transport mode should be made faster and easier than having to drive in a motor vehicle. So increasingly, roads for private vehicle becomes a club good. Those who can pay and afford it will get access to it. It will not necessarily be faster. I talked about club goods and common goods with specific examples in episode 9 of this season. Check it out. Congested roads are a disincentive. When a bus travels faster in the same carriageway, you will be interested in using it. So more people are benefited. This retains the character of the road as a common good for the people who use mass transport, while using the motor vehicle space as a club good, which earns for the upkeep of the larger audience who walk, cycle, and take mass transport. This is when congestion charging makes sense. Unless this concept is understood and applied in the correct sequence and allocation, governments end up making wrong choices and squandering the advantages. Someone posted on X about a north south corridor in Tokyo built more than 6 decades ago. I thought a few things were interesting in this post to use an example. Tokyo is the largest city in the world, with the core city having 3 times the population of Bengaluru and the larger Tokyo area having 4 times the population of Bengaluru. They have very narrow roads in many places, and street parking is banned in most areas. People walk everywhere and also use the bicycle to get to train stations. They don't have wide roads in the city. Compare this to Gurugram, where we have like 20 lanes dividing the city, which one cannot even cross. It's that highway to Jaipur. Trust me, I tried it, couldn't cross. Like one of the commenters to that post also noted, they charge for using the road network, and the speeds on the road are slower than the speeds on the mass transport network. Nobody complains about the width of the roads because they are given a clean and reliable network for the other choices they make. A recent survey noted 74% of commuters believe congestion charge could reduce traffic. This was done in Bengaluru. This is true, but whoever wants to pay needs to have reliable, safe alternates. Not perfect, but they should be there. Else, it will come at the cost of their livelihood. All these problems have an underlying cultural understanding of what we as people want. While we observe the symptoms, it is useful to highlight them. We have to pay attention to the underlying structures and the mental models in which our governance is run. As Kaushik Basu notes in his book, The Republic of Beliefs, the most important ingredients of a republic, including its power and might, reside in nothing more than the beliefs and expectations of ordinary people going about their daily life. So, what should we as people believe in? Sure, clean roads with clearly marked lanes are a necessary condition, but so is allowing other non private vehicle choices to take the first priority in the transport network. Tokyo has a metro train network of 300 kilometers and a suburban train network of 2,500 kilometers. They manage 40 million passenger trips daily, equal to the population of the entire greater Tokyo area every day. We can't manage 15 and 20 million in our cities. Tokyo has over 158 lines, train lines, and more than 48 different operators, private operators, including JREs, Tokyo Metro, Toei Subway, and many other private companies operate these lines. This brings us to the bureaucratic constraints that prevent complex networks in the city to function at the efficiencies required. The city is not a simple organism. We have to believe that unless the system changes, we are not going to get different results. Like this quote widely attributed to Henry Ford says, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you have always got. This has always been my favorite quote if you want any change. You're not going to see anything different if you don't change things. However, India's tax to GDP ratio is around 18% compared to the 34% in OECD countries, which are the advanced countries in the West. This means tax money alone is not enough to build out modern infrastructure at our today's per capita income. Using private money to put up capital expenditure is useful. Mechanisms like blended finance, public private partnership, climate finance, etc., become important. Because while we do this, it is an imperative to build infrastructure for a climate friendly future. You cannot ignore that or say it will come next. Additionally, utilization and accountability improves when the fund allocation becomes decentralized. India spends on only 3% of its budget at the local government level, compared to over 50% in China. There is no use of monies lying in union or state government alone for the reforms that need to happen in the local level. They need to be more local at the city and the ward level. And when the monies arrive at the local level, the capacities and efficiencies of utilizing this money then becomes crucial. It can't be squandered away like it is being done now. Let us look at efficiencies. Why do we have substandard work on our public infrastructure? Why are our roads crumbling? Why are our bridges falling? Why is the tar peeling off? Why is our construction practice so bad that we leave mud lying around and we all wallow in that filth? The underlying administrative system run by the administrative service officers is concerned more about compliance than innovation or even the people they serve. They prefer the status quo that prevents them from doing anything different. The book by Karthik Muralidharan, Accelerating India's Development, throws some interesting stats. By the way, most of the stats and quotes I am using in this episode are from his book. It is right here, the big blue book that you see on the top shelf. He says corruption in government likely accounts for less than 20% of waste in government. In fact, he says it's around 17%. More than 80% is inefficiency resulting from poor management and governance. And even that corruption is not because of a lack of a good pay. Averaged across all categories of employees from the IAS down to Group D. Public employee salaries in India are amongst the highest in the world. They are also assured of lifetime employment in many roles. This is the biggest barrier to effectiveness of government function, this lifetime employment. So the system itself needs reform. While the Indian bureaucracy is large, with 10 million employees, India has only 16 public employees per thousand people, compared to 57 in China and 77 in the US, 111 in Brazil, 159 in Norway. So, making this elephant dance while adding capacity is going to be quite a task, and the time to begin is now. However, the administrative service is preventing reforms by not providing right guidance to the politicians. It is then incumbent on civil society to push the reforms in governance rather than focusing on short term gains like pothole filling. Civil society is you and me and everybody else. The recent outbursts you see across the internet on bad quality of infrastructure needs to be channeled towards government reforms, and we have to stick to it. NC Saxena, a distinguished civil servant in his 2019 book, said the administrative system seemed to be running for the convenience first and foremost of the civil servants themselves, which means the bureaucracy places the interest of insiders over the broader public interest. This needs to change. Again, now. Next, an acknowledgement of the quality of government personnel needs to be emphasized. One company, Amazon, alone employs more than 1,000 PhD holders for data analytics. For the kind of work governments are doing in big cities with complex environments, how much are they relying on data and analytics? Amazon delivers just products and food to you. The city governments are handling complex life systems. And they themselves admit many rely on experience, intuition, and informed guesswork. As James Clear noted in his book Atomic Habits, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So, where will all this capacity and money come from? Most of the technical capacity currently comes from non profit technical assistance organizations who aggregate urban planners and designers in the private domain. Most of this capacity is funded by CSR and philanthropy. But the challenge is to synchronize this advisory capital with the government investment in the infrastructure. For example, the union government just announced a scheme with an outlay of 1 lakh crore. The Urban Challenge Fund will allow private developers to act as urban infrastructure administrators. This means they will develop and maintain infrastructure such as roads, water supply, sanitation, and transportation. These projects must be endorsed by city or state governments. The money will be routed through state level escrow accounts, while 50% will come through bonds, loans, and PPP models. The rest will be divided equally by the state and the union. Here's the clinch though. To be eligible for this support, cities must implement reforms in 8 areas: operations, governance, tariff, property tax, transit, project financing, planning, and building bylaw reforms. This could be an opportunity. The purists may not like it. Can this be used wisely to professionalize urban planning and management within the government? Will this become just another set of projects without the necessary reforms? Will the administrators and politicians use this as an opportunity to change the underlying systems of infrastructure, building, and administrative process? Will they be able to ensure it remains a common good without exclusions to the general public? The answer could lie in what Jean Claude Juncker, former Prime Minister of Luxembourg and President of the European Commission, noted about politicians. We all know what to do, we just don't know how to get re elected after we have done it, he said. This brings us to culture. If institutions fix the broken windows, will we as people behave differently to respect our public comments? Will our civic sense improve? Will we stop throwing our trash on the roads? Will we stop going the wrong way to save a rupee or two? Will we become less selfish on the roads? Will we accept alternate modes of mobility or use the excuse of comfort and aspiration to stay in the car? There is ever increasing evidence that cultural norms among the population determines the pathway to reforms. Joel Mokir, the winner of the 2025 Nobel Prize in Economics, notes in his 2016 book, A Culture of Growth: The Origins of the Modern Economy, the central changes associated with modern economic growth were the new belief in the power of humans to understand nature and the creation of a new system to acquire and diffuse such knowledge. Maybe our ability to pay attention to the details I have presented in this episode, seek more knowledge around the possible reforms that can enable permanent change, and incentivize new politics around sustainable government systems is the new cultural paradigm for India. Let's track this in more details in further episode. See you in the next episode. Hope you like this. Comment below. Goodbye.